Install the best version of you.
Hei, salut! Suntem la ediție specială a Upgrade 100 podcast, video și audio. Suntem la Saga Studio și avem de vorbit cu un invitat special. Este o producție în limba engleză. Invitatul meu astăzi este Leslie Szamosi, este directorul programului MBA de la City College University of York campus. Les este o figură aparte, având în vedere că e un specialist care a lucrat extrem de mult în Canada, atât în sectorul public cât și în sectorul privat, la o sumedenie de companii și la o sumedenie de universități. Aveți în descrierea podcastului o biografie completă. De ce vorbim cu Les Szamosi? Vorbim pentru că, este într-o arie de expertiză extrem de relevantă pentru perioada pe care o traversăm, o arie de expertiză care mă preocupă și pe mine, și anume zona de people management, HR și modul în care se transformă munca și leadership-ul din cauza pandemiei și a lucrului la distanță. În al doilea rând, no bullshit, mă gândesc serios să urmez unul dintre programele MBA ale City College, așa că am profitat puțin să mă informez direct de la sursă. Există două programe extrem de interesante în Big Data și Neuromarketing. Unul dintre ele mi se pare interesant și pentru mine. Prin urmare, o să schimbăm în engleză și îi dăm drum.
Upgrade 100.
Welcome to Upgrade 100 podcast. We have a lot of topics we will cover today. Why education at any age is very important. Why we need a constant and permanent upgrade of ourselves and to be up to date with our knowledge. Maybe we will touch a little bit digital education, also how the human resources changed during the pandemic, if we have new rules, how business leaders must be ready for this new reality, or maybe it's not a new reality, maybe the business will come back to normal. And I know God knows what else. We will see how this.
After pandemic, nobody knows how things are going to turn out anyway. So,
okay, so you are running a pretty successful MBA program at the University of York Europe campus. Let's assume they never heard about your program and never heard about University of York. What should they consider, or what do you consider for them to be important to know about what you are doing there? Is not too far from Bucharest, and also you have some activities around here.
So I think so first of all, thank you again for having me with you. It's a real pleasure to be here to engage with you and to hopefully share some knowledge with your listeners. I think one of the key things that I think it's interesting to know about our program is that we've been running MBA programs in our region for 30 years now. So we've been a player in Southeastern Europe now for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And up in Romania, as well as the other 7 countries. So we have 8 countries altogether that we run our program in, and over 4,000 alumni, MBA alumni throughout the region. I think what's for those people that don't know about our program, it's one of the few programs in our region that's truly a regional MBA player. In each of the countries, you have a lot of very good local MBA programs, and I think it's safe to say as well in Romania there's some very, very good programs. But there are no programs that really have a big regional footprint. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in is bringing global knowledge and global understanding into a regional context. There are a lot of, with the pandemic and so on, there are a lot of different programs that we see online. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about digital education and so on. But the fact that we've been around for so many years and we really bring the best of global knowledge, relevant global knowledge, but contextualize it inside the local environment, I think is really critical. I've had the opportunity to visit Bucharest for going on the last 15 years. And when you look at the changes that have happened, not only in Romania as a country, but as well throughout the region, in order to really get the best out of an MBA program, you really need people who understand what's happening inside that local market, but can also broaden that out into the European perspective. I guess the last thing and the most important thing for us is the evolution of our program. As we've moved to the University of York, and we're now the European campus of that institution, but as well, we're now offering a dual degree program with the University of Strasbourg. And I can safely say in this region, it's the only dual degree MBA program that's available. So I think it puts us into a different context, and I think it begins to create a new way of approaching MBA education as we go forward after the pandemic.
Okay, let's say that I'm the owner of some companies. I'm working with tens or maybe more than 100 people. I'm in my early or late 40s. We will never know. And I'm thinking maybe to follow on an MBA program with you. But I consider that I know everything. My companies went well during the pandemic, and maybe I don't need an MBA anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right or am I arrogant?
I would just say that you're neither arrogant nor wrong. You're just naive.
Okay.
I think.
Let's start. Okay.
So here's what I would say. I've having been director of this program for a number of years now. I've come across individuals who say, you know what, there's nothing else to know. Okay, I've got it all. Bill Gates didn't study an MBA and he was successful, and we can go on and on with the people that have been successful. Are they the exception or the rule? Is what I always like to say. And when it comes to business, I think the smart business owner knows that they don't know anything. They've got something that works. And it's working well. And you know what? If you've come through the pandemic and you're doing well, you're doing something right. But as I like to say to people, if I today said that last year you made 10 million net profit after taxes, would you be happy? And the majority of business owners say, I would be very, very happy. And then I ask them, how would you feel if you could have made 20 million net profit thinking or working in a different way? How would you feel? Mm-hmm. And it usually gets silence. Okay.
So can we sign before the signing for the MBA that my profit will double at least?
Well, you know what? Let's put it this way. It's not going to go down by half. How's that? Look, here's the thing. Okay. What's really interesting that I find about running this MBA program here, as you know, I'm Canadian, so I'm still relatively new in this region. What's really interesting about our region is that we have gone through a crisis prior to the pandemic. Okay, we've actually gone through a hell of a change in the way that we do business. Okay, when I first started coming up to Romania, the doors were open. Okay, the money was, and I don't want to say it was just flying out the door, but it was rolling pretty nicely. And then the crisis.
What year was that?
We are looking at 2009, 2008. Right?
Okay.
Things were good.
Just before the previous crisis. Huh?
Exactly. prior to the crisis.
Okay.
So you think things are happening, and we've actually, because of that crisis, learned a lot of different ways of coping with crisis. As the pandemic came along, and we've been teaching a lot of MBA, a lot of students, a lot of people in different companies throughout this crisis period. They know, a great owner knows that they have to do better, that there's always something new. There's, in a digitalized world, okay? The person who says, I know everything, and doesn't prepare for digitalization is going to be either lucky to continue, or they're going to find themselves trying to bring in the right types of talent in order to catch up.
And how do you manage this skepticism? Because sometimes, okay, especially after you're over 30, 35, maybe your brain is not that ready to learn like you used to when you were a student. And what's the mindset of such a person before and after the MBA? Did you face some situations where maybe, I know, companies just insisted for somebody to go to do an MBA, and maybe people weren't that enthusiastic about going to school again?
Sure.
How do you usually are approaching those kind of conversations where somebody is maybe not that open to restart learning? Maybe we can find in our audience some guys that are maybe thinking about doing an MBA or something, but they are not sure this is a right idea for them. I'm one of them, so
okay,
let's do this exercise.
Sure. Look, there's always something more to know. There's always something that we don't know. And if there's one change that I see in the MBA graduates from the first day that they come into the classroom until they exit, is that they say, you know what, I don't know everything. And I've now learned X or Y, or I've become more adept at understanding this particular area or that particular area. The other thing is, and I think, it's a misnomer to think that you just come into the classroom and knowledge just sort of hits you and sticks. Knowledge comes from sharing information inside the classroom. I'll quite honestly, I don't have all the answers. Okay. And, if I had all the answers, quite honestly, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. I'd be chatting with Bill and the multi-billionaires.
He's right after you,
that's what I said, and I talked to Bill just beforehand, and I said, just watch it. I hope I don't steal his thunder coming on to the to the podcast earlier. So it's this sense of bringing knowledge together, creating knowledge inside the classroom. So MBA education, yes, there are things that we can teach. Sometimes even confirming that I'm doing the right thing assists me in giving me that additional drive to go forward. Okay. The other aspect, of course, about executive MBA programs in particular is the networking that occurs inside the classroom, learning from other people, okay? Learning from other people, not only from the region, but in our case, from the other 8 countries that people come from. We've got people working across countries now, bringing together, some of our Azerbaijani students and Armenian and Georgian and Serbian students, and creating new businesses. So, and looking at new opportunities. So, but back to the original question, if somebody believes they have nothing more to learn, I would just say that they're naive.
Okay. So, I do think there is a very strong argument or valid point in creating new business relationships, because I just remember I'm doing right now some projects with former classmates, and I can imagine that potential new classmates that are in business already can be a very interesting synergy. It was a pandemic for your business too, and I'm wondering how an MBA program or higher education program changed during those times. Did you adapt what you are doing to the new context? You've evolved in some way. You've learned something that is worth sharing.
Yeah. So let me look at it first from the educational side of things. Basically, what the pandemic has done, in my view, is shifted or turned universities on their head. Okay, and that's throughout our region, but throughout the world. To have a model where you are really ready for people to be with you face to face, and you're set up in that way. Now, of course, there were institutions that were online oriented. There have been educational institutions like that for a while. But to be thrown into a situation of, an area that I study a lot in, which is what we call radical change or revolutionary change or discontinuous change, where, from one day to the next, you have to think differently, has really forced universities, and ourselves included, to rethink what it is that we're doing. Now, moving from in our case, from a pure face-to-face environment to an online environment, especially with MBA students, has been very challenging because, as I mentioned earlier, the networking aspect is an important part of the MBA experience, not only in our program, but globally in the institutions that I accredit. And that's been a big challenge. How can you create that networking opportunity? And I'll be honest with you, we haven't been as effective in doing that as we could have been or should have been. Going forward, the question is, what does the future hold? Okay, how are you going to approach things? Well, one of the things that we're going to start this year is what we're calling a blended MBA program, where people can be online, so they can have the online experience, the online educational experience that we've now developed, but as well have that face-to-face contact in some of our study trips. In our program, we have students get together from all of our countries at 3 time points, both at University of York, the University of Strasbourg, and here. So we're now seeing an opportunity where we're having students now applying to us from a number of different European countries, even down into Africa and Asia, where they can still have a world-class educational MBA experience, at the same time, still have that face-to-face contact. So, it's meant us having to change our teaching techniques. You can't just do what you do in a face-to-face environment and then just simply put it online. It just doesn't work that way. When I look at the evaluations, we always evaluate our courses, whether they're face-to-face or online, immediately after. Surprisingly, the evaluation scores are the same, if not a little bit higher, for the online system, which means that we've been doing something well, or we've been doing something right. Having said that, we're ready to jump back into the face-to-face environment. Quite honestly, I can't wait to get on my Rome flight to get back up to Bucharest, to visit some of our students in Cluj in the future as well, Timișoara and so on. Because I really think that's where the biggest value of MBAs come from.
Looking through your biography, we see that you're focused a lot in human resource management or organizational behavior, change management. All those areas are challenged now. My question to you is, how valid the theory still is in such turbulent times? How fast you adapted, and how fast your students and maybe the guys that are listening to us right now must change or adapt. Is still valid what we used to know about how to manage our teams, how to tackle maybe the challenges that we have now, because we do see we have also new challenges, even psychological challenges. People are affected deeply by on the things that happened. What are your thoughts on this?
What I'd say, Alexander, to begin with here is, in my view, the fundamentals of human resource management haven't changed. Okay, the fundamentals. And let me play devil's advocate here. If you were a manager or an organization or an owner of a company, and you were treating people with the basic principles of human resource management, meaning you support them, you motivate them, you encourage them, you're there when they need to be helped, to be assisted. And then the pandemic comes along, you would simply continue doing those things at a higher level. What the pandemic has shown us is there were gaps in the way that we were managing people. I always like to say that, human resource management is not rocket science. Okay, it really isn't. If I treat somebody with respect, if I pay them a fair wage for a fair day's work, and they reciprocate, then we establish a relationship. But the problem that we have is that there's still in our region, I can still see this, gaps between the lower levels and the higher levels of organizations. It's an us versus them perspective, as opposed to that team perspective. So when we start getting back to the fundamentals, I don't think they've changed. Having said that, I think what's required post-pandemic is a raising of the game in all of these areas. It's us having to be even more understanding of the people that we work with, to understand their needs both as individuals inside our organization, but as well as human beings. And when we see workers simply as a resource just to be used to get the most out of them, and then whatever happens, you lose that personal connection. You lose that connection with people. If you think about the number of people that have brain drained out of our region prior to the pandemic, during the crisis, before the crisis, when you ask them, why are you leaving? Okay, why are you leaving Romania to go and work, and you just fill in the name of the European country or North America? They say, I need opportunities. I need to feel like I have a future. I always say, well, can't we do that in our region? We're, not that the people left behind are the people with no future, but if you think about the number of really smart people that are doing incredibly well in other countries, the question becomes, why are they getting something there that we can't do? I've always said, since the first day that I stepped into this region, managers in this region, owners of businesses in this region, stand shoulder to shoulder against the best people that I've seen globally in terms of what I call technical management. We are excellent at technical management. We are not so good in this region in terms of the soft skills of management, the soft side of management. And those, I think, are the key areas that we now, because of this pandemic, have to double down on or triple down on. If you think about why people stay with a company, okay, do they stay because it's of the money? Maybe. Okay, if you're going to pay me 15,000 euros a month, it's going to be tough for me.
I can shout during Zoom meetings.
But the majority of people stay in their company because of the support that they get from their manager, the support that they get from the organization. They will stay there for less money than they could make elsewhere because they feel respect, they feel like they're doing a job that makes a difference. You have people that are making a lot of money who leave their companies because they don't feel respected, they don't get it's the reverse of everything. So I think through this pandemic, the great organizations have stepped forward and they've said, we care about you, we're going to prove that we care about you, and we're going to show you. And those are those are just the fundamentals of human resource management. Again, I don't consider it rocket science.
We have employees that we never met during the last year. New employees that are working for us on permanent basis remotely, and they didn't have the chance to meet to their colleagues in person and to have a chat with their direct supervisors in person and so forth. There are challenges related with teleworking, telecommuting. As far as I know, you've run recently even a research on on those topics. I'm trying to understand your view regarding those aspects. How should we treat or how a true business leader must address this challenge? What changed in the relationship with our colleagues, and how can we build a relationship, or how can we build this team spirit with somebody we never met in person? Yep. Is this doable?
Well, so first of all, the idea of what we call virtual teams has been around for the better part of 20 years. Okay, I give you the example of Oracle in Romania, basically the global hub for virtual teaming for Oracle. They've been playing in this area for a very, very long period of time, as have a number of other big companies. Let me to answer the question, let me give you let me paint a little picture. Go back to March 10th last year. Okay, we go back to March 10th, just before the pandemic hit in. If somebody had gone to their boss and said, "Hey boss, you know what? I want to work at home. I don't want to be here. I want to work at home." The boss would have said, "You have two choices. Number one, you leave my company, you're fired, or get back to your desk and work." Okay. The idea of telework and telecommuting was not readily accepted.
It was more like a bonus. So, for example, in our company, we had like one work from home Friday per month, even before.
There you go. But and the company would say, "You're kidding me. Come on." And then suddenly on March 20th, we were shoveling people out the door and saying, "We trust you. Go and work at home." Now, I always say, be careful what you wish for, okay? Because there were a lot of people wishing for telework. I've been studying and working in the area of telework for over 20 years now. People were at home, they're teleworking, and now, and again, let me come forward to where we are today. Now the companies are sitting back saying, "Oh boy, look, you know what? Productivity went up." And that's what the data shows. Productivity. People became more productive at home initially. And you know what? If they're working at home, I don't need such a big office space. Okay. In fact, I don't need as many phone lines. I don't, I can reduce my costs. That's the business side of things. What we're now seeing, though, is productivity is actually beginning to fall. And people who have been at home for an extended period of time, who initially said, "This is fantastic. I have a better work-family balance. My spouse is close by, and now they're saying, get me out of here." Okay, the kids are driving me crazy. If I see my spouse for one more day, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah, the divorce rate in Romania just exploded at more than 30%.
Absolutely.
They miss their colleagues at work.
Yeah. And so what's the future holding? And here's what the data says. The data says the people who are teleworking don't want to go back exactly to the way it was before. Okay. They're not ready to 100% say, "COVID, it's over, pandemic, it's over, back to work." They want a blended approach. Okay. They want human contact. They need human contact. We're humans. We need to be with other humans.
Not 10 hours per day. Huh?
But not 10 hours per day, and not 6 days a week. Okay. So we're going to see a new shakeout in the way that businesses operate, which gives a lot of opportunities for companies to create the correct working environment that will encourage people to work in that type of environment. Companies are always looking for the best talent. Okay, we say it's all about talent management and attracting the right types of talent. Going forward, I think what we're going to see is the companies that provide a flexible type of work environment. They can say, "Yes, you know what? We've got the offices. We want you to be here, because we want to be able to communicate with you and we want to be able to work with you directly. But there's this other option, which is you can, certain days you're here, certain days you're not. I think that's what we're going to see going forward. Having said that, and I know we've seen this up in Romania, this issue of digital nomads is now playing a big role, where our workforce could literally be located anywhere in the world. Technology has got faster and faster. Here we are talking in a way where we don't have delays in the communication. I can hear you perfectly. I'm hoping you can hear me perfectly. We can talk over each other. Go back 5 years ago, that wouldn't happen. You would say something and I would wait to ensure that I got the message, and then it's like we're there. We're creating virtual environments. So, the digital nomads, how do you bring them into your organization? I think these are going to be some of the interesting challenges that we go forward. I think the other challenge is helping people cope with this new reality from the mental aspect, the mental health of people, the psychological aspect. I think, organizations need to take a strong look at and really sit back and say, you know what, a mentally healthy employee is a productive, loyal employee. I've got to make sure that I do what's right for the individual. And now, we start talking about, corporate social responsibility and all these other things. I think these types of things are also going to play a critical role in this, again, post-pandemic organizational system.
You've mentioned before one of the issues we have in our leadership in Southeast Europe, and I tend to agree with the lack of soft skills. Is this something you can improve following an MBA program or continuing your studies in any way?
Yeah.
Are there also modules that you maybe can recommend to our listeners that are looking to improve the way they understand the workforce or something similar? Because I do think this is a major challenge, and this is an increasingly important matter, especially in this new hybrid reality where you have to manage people from before the pandemic. You have to integrate the new team members. Some of them are being seen like avatars because they are just pumping up in Zoom, Teams, or whatever other software is used for meetings and so forth. So it's getting more complex, and I'm wondering if you can learn to be a good leader with people, or this is something you're born with or not.
Yeah, well, if we go back in time, the traditional view of leadership was you're a born leader or a made leader. Okay, these were the two options that were presented. What we know is that you can create leaders. Okay, you can create leaders, and the question is, do you give people the right opportunities to not just learn it but practice it? Okay, and here's the thing. Yes, an MBA program can assist in that. I think we run a unit called Leading and Managing People. Okay, specifically on leadership and as well change management, and we talk a lot about neuro leadership. Okay, and how can leaders really work with individuals, and what are the skills that a leader needs? We have another unit called Understanding Organizational Behavior, understanding why people think the way they think and do what it is that they do from a cultural point of view and so on. People that join our program, we have a one-on-one career and leadership coach that works with them, where we analyze their leadership skills. We do some testing with them, and then a professional coach, certified coach, works with them to identify where they are currently as a leader and where they would like to see themselves as a leader. And then we work with that individual to help guide them through different ways, through different techniques to try and become a different type of leader. Now, sometimes you have people who are very, let's just say, autocratic. They have a very autocratic leadership style, and they want to become more empowering, more democratic, shall we say. At the same time, we sometimes have leaders who are, I would just call them soft leaders, okay? They get run over by the people, okay? And they say, you know what, I've got to start eating nails. I've got to get some strength. I really want to be a little bit more aggressive or forceful. You know, everybody has their own personality and leadership style, okay? I think for me, the most important thing in terms of leadership is to understand that leaders can be anywhere in an organization. They are not just the people at the top. They can be the people at the very lowest levels of the organization. And from my view, the most important people in your organization are the ones lower in the organization, not the people at the top. The people at the top, hopefully they're leaders, okay? You know, hopefully they are. But, you know, if you really think about who engages with customers, who does the day-to-day things, who do you really want to have leadership skills? It's the people at the lower and middle levels. They're the heart of your organization. I always say, can an organization run without a CEO? Okay? And the answer is they can. Organizations can function. But can you run without the bottom level, whatever the lowest levels are? You can't. And those are the people that you want to take on leadership responsibilities. Those are the people, and I think it's coming through this pandemic, I didn't see any CEOs coming and working at the cash register during pandemic. They were still sequestered off in their offices. Maybe they walked around a little bit. It was the men and women, frontline workers, masked up, putting their lives on the line, serving clients. Okay, if you know, take the food delivery business. This has exploded. Okay, it's absolutely been an explosion in this area, and it's great to see new industries come up. Who are the ones engaging and putting their lives at risk every day during the pandemic? Okay, the healthcare sector. You know, the healthcare sector. It's the frontline workers who do this. Right. So, you know, I think the point here that I want to make is leadership is a skill. It's something that can be built. It's part of a soft skills perspective. It involves communication. It involves emotional intelligence. It involves being able to take responsibility and ownership of things. You know, for me, a leader is the one who says, you know what, I messed up. You know, when this pandemic came, we didn't run quick enough. I take responsibility. I put it on my shoulders. Now I'm going to make the adjustments. Thank you for doing what you did to keep us going. Now let's go forward. So I always like a quote from Richard Branson, who I think is coming right on after Bill Gates, right? Today.
Yeah. It's
you wanted me first,
9
Bill,
PM,
and then Richard.
Richard.
Richard said, whenever we succeed, it's my workers' success. When we fail, it's my responsibility. Now,
so should we look for leaders not in classical Eastern European style, like, you know, in Eastern Europe we have this thing somehow you have to deserve to be promoted, and one of the key elements is how old are you with the organization. So somehow there are situations where you have somebody that is maybe not that competent anymore, but he's from, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, 7 years with the company, and maybe we should look to leaders somewhere else, maybe.
It's not just the person who's been with us 10 or 15 years and we say, they're old, we got to promote them. It's because, you know, this person is the third cousin's grandmother's sister's friend of the CEO.
This is in the state-owned institutions mostly. Yeah.
No
in
comment.
Romania, this is a tradition.
I love my government public sector employees, but we've got issues to work in that area. Absolutely.
Yep.
Look, for me, the people that should be promoted should be the ones that exhibit the leadership characteristics that are important inside that organization. Now, if you're in an organization that's very bureaucratic, okay, and it's basically, cut this out if you will, whose ass you kiss, then that's the type of leaders you're going to groom inside the organization. If the promotion and the leadership is based on your leadership skills, the activities that you do, the way that you deal with people effectively, and of course, I know there are always people that say, "Oh, come on now, it's about results as well." Okay, we got to give the results, but we should be looking at a different set of characteristics. And I would agree with you. In this region, we are still falling behind other developed regions in terms of leadership and what we're expecting from leaders.
After this pandemic, and we're still in the pandemic, we have, as you mentioned, companies that managed to do great, maybe because of the context. I don't think you don't need to be a very wise leader in order to grow a company in the food delivery, because it's obviously suddenly your market exploded.
Yeah.
But still, what are the main skills do you consider that is separating the ones that are the winners after this pandemic and the ones that are maybe still dizzy or even losers? Because we have a lot of businesses that failed, my main fear is that we are just at the beginning of this cycle, because the real impact of the economic crisis is not visible yet. We have helicopter money, we have different grants and different ways we hope we can sustain the economy, but I think that the real crisis will follow, and we will see more and more companies that are not doing that great. So, winners and losers, what are their main skills, and how eventually someone that is not sure yet what to do can benefit from the knowledge they can obtain with you at City College?
Sure. Look, I think the key element here is knowledge. It's information. Mm-hmm. And whether that if that comes through education, through networking, and so on, that's the key element. The ones that have the knowledge, that have the tools, if you will, at hand going forward, are the ones that are going to survive. You mentioned food delivery for a second. As you said, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, if you get a couple of scooters and you go out, there's just so much business going on. It's hyper growth. Eventually, as all competitive markets, everything begins to come in balance, and you have little fish eating big fish, or big fish eating little fish, and there'll be a shakeout and so on. Some will disappear. As you said, I think this helicopter money has been great, but it's also given us a false sense of security. And when that disappears, and it will disappear, and then we're going to get into a situation where it's got to be paid back. And that's going to be the real kicker. And I agree with you 100%. The real problem is 3 to 5 years down the road. Okay, that's when the bills need to start being paid. What's going to differentiate the winners from the losers? It's going to be knowledge. It's going to be the way that we have worked with our people, the people side of things. I think it's going to be as well what happens when other companies start thinking about coming into our marketplace and they start looking for expansion. Because one thing is, when your market starts to close off, you look for other markets to go into and start playing in, and suddenly they're going to be coming in with lower prices, better ways of managing people. I give the example of a company called Telenor from Norway. Mm-hmm. They came into this region. And they had a different way of managing people. And they came in during a crisis situation. And the way that they managed people in a couple of countries that we work in was they treated people with respect. They said, our most important resource is not the technology. The technology is the backbone. It's the people that make the technology. They came into the market and they started siphoning off some of the best people from the other telecom players. And suddenly the other telecom players are looking around saying, what do we do now? So what's the option? You either go to the government and say, help us out. Okay? The government start closing their arms and putting away the wallet and so on. So knowledge is critical. Having the right attitude in dealing with people. At the end of the day, unless you are a perfectly AI-driven company where you can just push a button and let the AI take care of everything, including the credit notes and everything else, it will always come down to the people. And we will always, I am, as a consumer, I'll just speak to myself. I am happier paying money to companies where I feel valued by the people that I'm working with who truly enjoy their jobs than giving money to a company where I feel like a second-class citizen, like they're doing me a favor by servicing me.
You have a lot of programs and a lot of modules at City College. So in this new context, what are your top recommendations to be studied by our listeners that are maybe interested in following your advice and my advice also, in order to keep ourselves upgraded. What is new? What is to be watched and maybe considered by our audience?
Sure, I think it's important to speak to two different types of audience listeners here. One are the people that are currently working and can't give up their job or don't want to give up their job in order to educate themselves. Okay. And I think, in Romania, we're running three programs. We're running our MBA program. We're running a master's in marketing in the country, and as well a small business and innovation type program. So those are the three things that we do in Romania for people that want to continue working, but of course those degrees take a little longer to complete.
So all those three can be done without taking a break from your current job.
Exactly, and they're run in the country. They're run in Bucharest. To be direct. The other programs, we've just launched 2 or 3 new master's programs here in the home office in the European campus in Thessaloniki. We're starting a neuromarketing program this year. We are also starting a master's in shipping, and we've just started a master's in digital analytics. So we've got 3 new areas that we're pushing into. And we've also, at the undergraduate level, we started a specialization in tourism.
Okay, so very interesting. So for our specific audience, I think the most interesting ones are the neuromarketing and digital analysis. Can you give us more details about those 2 programs? And I'm also interested in finding out how about the investment and other practical things our listeners should consider.
Sure. So from the neuromarketing perspective, neuromarketing is a very quick, fast-growing area. The issue, quite honestly, of neuromarketing has been with us for a very long period of time. It's not the term neuro is not overly new, but the way the technology has advanced and our abilities now to monitor, to eye track, and all of these great things, the neurosynapses and how everything's working has really just blossomed over the last 3 to 5 years. What's interesting, I think, about that program is the blend that it has with psychology. The neuropsychology aspect of things. So, that particular master's program basically takes the best of marketing and psychology, with neuro as the linking pin between it. And as we go forward, you're seeing a lot of big players come into big companies using neuromarketing in terms of developing their marketing strategies, in terms of consumer behavior, and basically trying to better understand the consumer itself. In terms of the digital analytics, the use of big data and so on has just, again, it's a misnomer to say that it has exploded. The way that we can utilize data, and with the processing power that we have now, and through artificial intelligence as well, to try and anticipate what's going to happen prior to it happening, and to become very, very accurate with predictions based on previous data, is an area that will continue to grow and explore. It's actually something we've also integrated into our MBA program. We have a unit on information and big data management, because today's MBA students have to be able not necessarily to create the data, but they have to be able to interpret the data. They have to be able to use that data from a strategic perspective.
How about the investment in time and money for following an MBA with you?
Sure. So for the MBA program, it takes place over a 22-month period, because it's run in an executive mode type of format. So people are holding on to their full-time work, but they're also studying at the same time. So it's part-time. So it basically doubles out the amount of time that somebody.
How often you should travel to Thessaloniki?
Well,
what's the investment?
So for the executive MBA program, we have all of the units are run in Bucharest. Okay, so people actually don't, if they're in Bucharest, they don't have to travel. If they're in Cluj, Timișoara, and so on, they can come to Bucharest. But I think it's also important because a lot of people say, but I can't necessarily commit because I have a business, okay, and I'm working, and I can't guarantee I'm going to be available on a weekend, because our units run on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday model about every 6 weeks in the country. People can go to other countries and take the units. So, for example, I've got a Romanian student now who's doing some work in Georgia. So they took the particular unit they couldn't do in Romania, and they went up to Georgia and took the unit, or they can go to Serbia or Bulgaria and so on. But there are 3 study trips involved. One is to the University of York going forward, where students take a unit called Corporate Financial Management. I think one of the newest things that we've brought with this dual degree is we're going to have teaching done by the University of York professors at York, but as well coming around to Bucharest. They're going to join us in Bucharest, and as well at Strasbourg. In Strasbourg, we're running a unit called Collaboration Tools for European Business and Sustainable Society, where they have a particular expertise in. So they're going to be students are going to be able to get that knowledge and expertise directly from the institutions that we work with. And then there is also a study week here in Thessaloniki. So they're basically, the majority of students would do all of their units in Bucharest, other than these 3 study trips. So it allows people to stay close to home, and this works for individuals that are, running their businesses and so on.
So, in order to conclude our pleasant and interesting discussion, Les, can you give us 3 advices or 3 main ideas or 3 takeaways for our audience to conclude to write down some key ideas after our chat today?
Absolutely. I think one of the keys going forward, I think, is that from a business perspective, from a managerial perspective, we cannot assume anything going forward. Okay. And I always like to say, if you write down the word assume, okay, so ASSUME, if you think about it, it's actually 3 words. If you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Okay. So in the future, going forward, don't assume anything. Okay. You cannot assume that that there's not going to be another pandemic. You cannot assume that the government's going to be there to bail you out. You cannot assume that your workers are going to stay with you and they're happy. Don't assume anything.
I will write down here. Don't be an ass. Don't be. Don't assume anything. Okay.
Don't assume anything.
Okay.
The second
don't
piece
be
of
a
advice,
smart ass. Don't be a smart ass.
There.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Number 2.
Number 2. Remember the people component of management. Okay. Management is not a technical profession. Management is a soft skills profession. If you want a technical profession, get back on the front line. Okay. Management is about people. It has been, will be, and always will be about people. Remember who it is that got you to where you are. Okay. Remember that without the people inside the system, we as leaders in companies, as owners of companies, we are nothing. We are only as good as the people we surround ourselves with. And I think
management equals people. I will write down here number 2. I will ask about that also when we will have our next chat with UiPath, because they want to replace some of us. I'm kidding. I know they don't want that, but okay. And number 3.
And the third thing is, you can never know enough. You cannot know enough. You have to continue educating. You have to continue pushing your knowledge, and it's the only way we can expand and change. We say in today's business environment, change or die. Okay, if you don't change, you're going to get run over. The only way to continue changing and evolving is to continue getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And that comes through knowledge acquisition. It's learning from our mistakes. It's learning new ways of approaching things. It's learning to know and being smart enough to know that you don't know anything.
This is a good final thought, number 3, because this is the key element in our festival, in our podcasts, and everything, because that's why we are calling ourselves Upgrade to Your 100 Potential always.
Absolutely.
Like a software, but not being human, because this is the most important thing of all.
Absolutely.
So those 3 advices from Les was our conclusion for today. And for the paid advices, I will guide you to york.citycollege.eu and take a look there, and maybe you will find an MBA program that suits you perfectly. Leslie Szamosi was our guest today. Thank you very much, and we are waiting for you in Bucharest the next time. Maybe we will do a live chat at our studio and also a live radio show.
It would be my pleasure. And you bring the palinka and I'll bring the ouzo.
I'm traveling pretty often in Greece too, so, and not working. This is the most annoying thing with Greece, because we have some offices in Patras and Athens, and every time I'm answering somebody, oh, sorry, I'm in Greece, they enjoy your holiday. And I'm working. Okay, but thank you. Mr. Szamosi, thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much for watching us, guys. Don't forget to follow the links in our description, because you will find additional information, links to the MBA programs. Also, you will have the full biography of Professor Szamosi, because it's a very long biography, and we have links and everything there in order for you to know our guest better. Thank you very much.
Upgrade 100.
Dragilor, cam asta a fost discuția noastră. Dacă vi se pare interesant să mai facem astfel de discuții cu invitați din străinătate, lăsați-ne un comentariu, o sugestie, o reclamație. Îmi spun colegii să dați subscribe dacă sunteți pe YouTube și așa mai departe. Dați un rating bun dacă ascultați versiunea podcast. Vă mulțumesc. Vă reamintesc că Upgrade 100 sezonul 1 s-a încheiat. Din când în când vom mai face astfel de ediții speciale și în zona FM vom veni cu niște propuneri noi. Eu sunt Dragoș Stanca. Vă mulțumesc mult pentru timp. Bye bye.